Captain Jack Miller stood alone on the observation deck of Lunar Base Alpha, his eyes fixed on the empty dock where the USS Nighthawk should have been. The massive warship, Earth's most advanced vessel, had simply vanished during what was supposed to be a routine maintenance cycle. Jack pressed his hand against the cold glass of the viewport. The Nighthawk had been his responsibility, not his command. That honor belonged to Captain Alan Blackwood. But as head of Lunar Dock Security, its safety had been in his hands. "Still nothing?" a voice asked from behind him. Jack turned to see Chief Engineer Kate Daniels. Her red hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept since the disappearance 36 hours ago. "Nothing," Jack confirmed. "No debris, no energy signature, no distress call. It's like it never existed." Kate joined him at the viewport. "That's not possible. A ship that size doesn't just disappear. The Nighthawk is nearly half a mile long. With a crew of 200, Jack nodded. The Nighthawk represented humanity's greatest achievement in military technology. Built in response to first contact with the Arcturian Collective, an alien federation that had been steadily pressuring human colonies, the ship featured experimental stealth systems and weapons that could shift the balance of power in the ongoing Cold War. "Command is calling it a defection," Jack said quietly. Kate's head snapped toward him. "That's ridiculous. Alan Blackwood is the most decorated captain in the fleet. He wouldn't—" "I know," Jack interrupted, "but someone has to take the blame, and a missing captain makes an easy target." The observation deck door slid open, and a young officer hurried in. "Sir, Admiral Wright has called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Your presence is requested immediately." Jack straightened his uniform. "On my way." "And sir," the officer added, "this came for you." He handed Jack a sealed envelope. Actual paper, not a digital message. Jack waited until he was alone in the corridor before opening it. Inside was a single line of text. "Trust no one. Not even Wright." The Defense Council chamber was filled with grim faces when Jack arrived. 12 of Earth's highest-ranking military officials sat around a circular table, with Admiral Susan Wright at its head. The Admiral was a formidable woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for ruthless efficiency. "Captain Miller," she acknowledged as he took his seat, "we were just discussing the security footage from your station." Jack kept his face neutral. "All cameras in Dock 7 were offline during the incident, Admiral. A scheduled system upgrade." "Very convenient," said General Pete Martinez, head of Earth's ground forces. "A scheduled upgrade during the maintenance of our most valuable military asset." "The schedule was approved by Fleet Command," Jack replied evenly. He wasn't about to become the scapegoat in this mess. Admiral Wright raised her hand, silencing further comments. "The disappearance of the Nighthawk isn't just a military disaster. It's an existential threat to Earth. If the Arcturians have somehow captured the ship, they could reverse engineer its stealth technology." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth's colonies in the Orion Arm were already under pressure from Arcturian expansion. The aliens never attacked directly, instead using economic and political leverage to force protection treaties on human worlds. The Nighthawk had been humanity's ace, a deterrent the Arcturians couldn't ignore. "We need to operate under the assumption that Captain Blackwood and his crew have defected," Wright continued. "All their access codes have been revoked. A fleet-wide alert has been issued." Jack wanted to protest but held his tongue. The envelope in his pocket suddenly felt heavier. Halfway across the solar system, Lieutenant Eric Powell sat in a small apartment on Mars Colony. He was supposed to be enjoying his shore leave, 2 weeks away from his duties as the Nighthawk's communications officer. Instead, he stared in disbelief at his personal device. The news feeds were calling it the greatest betrayal in human history. Captain Alan Blackwood, war hero and Eric's commanding officer for 3 years, had allegedly stolen Earth's most advanced warship. "This is wrong," Eric muttered to himself. He knew Blackwood. The captain was stern but fair, wholly devoted to Earth and its colonies. The man had lost his wife during the first tense standoff with the Arcturians. He would never betray humanity. Eric's device buzzed. An encrypted message had appeared on his screen. Not through the usual military channels, but through an old emergency system they'd developed for the Nighthawk. The sender was masked, but only a handful of people knew this protocol existed. The message contained nothing but coordinates and a single line of text. "We had no choice." Eric recognized the handwriting immediately. It was Captain Blackwood's. Back on the lunar base, Jack slipped away from the Defense Council meeting as soon as he could. He made his way to a secure terminal and entered his override codes. What he was about to do could be considered treason, but the note in his pocket had confirmed his suspicions. He accessed the maintenance logs from the day of the Nighthawk's disappearance and began to notice small inconsistencies. Power fluctuations in sections that should have been shut down. Brief spikes in the quantum signature readings, not the pattern of a ship being stolen, but of one preparing for a jump. His terminal suddenly went dark. When it reactivated, all the files he'd been examining were gone. "Curious about something, Captain Miller?" Jack turned to find Admiral Wright standing behind him, flanked by 2 armed guards. "Just doing my job, Admiral. Trying to understand what happened to the Nighthawk." Wright's smile didn't reach her eyes. "The investigation has been reassigned. Your services are no longer required in this matter." She nodded to the guards. "Escort Captain Miller to his quarters. He's confined there until further notice." As the guards led him away, Jack's mind raced. The Admiral was hiding something big enough to make Earth's most advanced warship disappear. But why? And where was the Nighthawk now? 3 days later, Eric Powell stood on the observation deck of a small transport ship heading toward the coordinates from Blackwood's message. He'd used all his savings to book passage on a mining vessel, claiming he was meeting family on one of the outer moon settlements. As the ship approached the coordinates, there was nothing visible, just empty space near the orbit of Neptune. Eric felt his heart sink. Had he misunderstood? Was this a wild goose chase? Then his device buzzed again. A new message. "Look with different eyes." Eric smiled. He pulled a small device from his pocket, something he'd borrowed from the Nighthawk's communications lab months ago. It was an experimental scanner designed to detect the ship's stealth field. When he activated it, the emptiness before him shimmered. For just a moment he caught a glimpse of the massive silhouette of the Nighthawk, hidden in plain sight. Whatever Captain Blackwood was planning, Eric was now part of it. And somehow, he knew that the fate of humanity might depend on what happened next. The Nighthawk hadn't been stolen. It had been hidden, and Eric suspected he was about to find out why. 5 years passed since the USS Nighthawk vanished. The galaxy had changed, and not for the better. Humanity was losing ground against Arcturian expansion. 3 colony worlds had fallen under their protection treaty, a fancy term for occupation. Earth's military struggled to maintain a brave face, but everyone knew they were outmatched without their most advanced warship. Commander Lisa Hayes stared at the holographic display in her small office on Earth's defense headquarters. For the past 3 years, she had led the investigation team still searching for clues about the Nighthawk. Most people had accepted the official story. Captain Alan Blackwood had defected, possibly selling the ship's technology to independent mercenary groups. Lisa knew better. "Still chasing ghosts, Commander?" Colonel Frank Daniels leaned against her doorway, arms crossed. Lisa didn't look up. "They're not ghosts if they're still out there." "It's been 5 years," Frank said. "If Blackwood and the Nighthawk were going to resurface, they would have by now." Lisa finally met his eyes. "Blackwood was your friend too. Do you really believe he betrayed Earth?" Frank's face hardened. "What I believe doesn't matter. The evidence..." "The evidence was manufactured," Lisa interrupted, "and you know it." Frank glanced over his shoulder, then stepped into her office, closing the door behind him. "Be careful, Hayes. Some questions aren't meant to be answered." After he left, Lisa pulled up the maintenance log she had obtained from Captain Jack Miller before he was reassigned to a remote outpost on Mars. Jack had been the only other person who questioned the official story. He had paid for his curiosity with his career. The logs showed unusual energy fluctuations consistent with an experimental jump drive activation, not a theft or hijacking. Lisa had spent years piecing together similar anomalies, creating a pattern that made no sense unless the Nighthawk's disappearance had been planned at the highest levels. Her computer beeped with an incoming message. No sender information, just text. Doc 12, Lunar Base Alpha. The maintenance chief has something for you. Lisa deleted the message immediately. She had received similar anonymous tips over the years, each one leading to another piece of the puzzle. Someone was helping her investigation from the shadows. Eric Powell worked at his desk in a small office on Europa Station. After leaving the military, he had taken a job as a civilian contractor, designing communication systems. It wasn't the career he had imagined, but it kept him close to the kind of technology used on the Nighthawk. Mr. Powell? His assistant poked her head in. There's a Commander Hayes here to see you. Eric tensed. He had been expecting this visit for years. Send her in. Lisa Hayes was not what he expected. From her reputation, he had imagined someone older, harder. Instead, she was a woman about his age, with determined eyes and a no-nonsense posture. Lieutenant Powell, she said. Just Eric now, he corrected. Haven't been a lieutenant in a long time. Lisa placed a small device on his desk. It activated, creating a bubble of static around them, a privacy field. I know you've been helping me, she said. The anonymous tips, the conveniently unlocked files. Eric kept his face neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not here to arrest you, Lisa said. I'm here because I need to know why. Why did the Nighthawk disappear? Where did it go? Eric studied her face, searching for signs of deception. What makes you think I know? Because you were supposed to be on that ship, Lisa said. Your shore leave was approved just hours before the disappearance. Very convenient timing. Eric sighed. He had been carrying this secret for 5 years. I can't tell you everything, not because I don't want to, but because I don't know everything. Captain Blackwood kept most of the plan compartmentalized. So there was a plan. Lisa leaned forward. Eric nodded slowly. The Nighthawk wasn't stolen, it was hidden. By whom? And why? By elements within Earth's own military, Eric said. People who saw what was coming with the Arctarians and knew we weren't ready. Lisa's eyes widened. Admiral Wright? Among others, Eric confirmed. The plan was to create something that could give humanity a fighting chance. The Nighthawk was just the beginning. Lisa sat back, processing this information. And you've been in contact with them? Occasionally, Eric admitted. Enough to know they're still out there, still working. On what? Eric hesitated. That's the part I don't know. But it's big enough that the captain was willing to be labeled a traitor, to make it happen. Jack Miller watched the sun set over the Martian landscape from his small quarters at Outpost Zeta. His reassignment was really an exile, a quiet way to remove him from the investigation without raising suspicions. His computer terminal chirped. A new message had arrived on his private channel, the one he had set up years ago, hoping someone from the Nighthawk would use it. The message contained only 2 words. Coming home. Jack's heart raced. After 5 years of silence, could it really be happening? He opened his desk drawer and pulled out the old envelope he had received just before the Nighthawk disappeared. The warning to trust no one, not even Admiral Wright. He had kept his head down, played the role of the disgraced officer, all while quietly watching and waiting. Now it seemed the waiting was almost over. In Admiral Wright's office on Earth, a red light began blinking on her secure terminal. She dismissed her aides and locked the door before accessing the alert. Long-range sensors had detected something unusual at the edge of the solar system, a ripple in space that matched the quantum signature of the Nighthawk's experimental drive. Wright's fingers flew over the keyboard, erasing all evidence of the alert before anyone else could see it. Then she opened a secure channel to a select group of officials, people who had known the truth all along. It's starting, she said simply. On the other end, an older man nodded gravely. Are we ready? We have to be, Wright replied. The Arctarians are making their final move. Fleet intelligence reports they've assembled an invasion force near Saturn. They'll bypass our early warning systems and be at Earth's doorstep before we can mount a proper defense. Then it's a good thing we have an ace up our sleeve, the man said. Let's hope Blackwood's wild gamble paid off. Wright ended the transmission and looked out her window at the peaceful Earth below. 5 years ago, she had made the hardest decision of her career, to send the Nighthawk and its crew into exile, to work on a project so secret even most of the Defense Council didn't know about it. Now the moment of truth was approaching. Either Blackwood had succeeded, or humanity was about to face extinction. Deep in space, beyond the orbit of Pluto, reality itself seemed to bend. A massive shape emerged from the distortion, the USS Nighthawk, its hull weathered but intact. On its bridge, Captain Alan Blackwood looked older, his face lined with the weight of responsibility. "Signal the others," he ordered. "It's time." Behind the Nighthawk, space rippled again, and again, and again. Blackwood allowed himself a small smile. "Let's go home." Alarms blared throughout Earth's defense headquarters. Officers rushed to their stations as giant screens displayed the unthinkable. A massive Arcturian fleet had somehow bypassed the early warning systems. Nearly 50 alien warships moved in, perfect formation near Saturn, heading directly toward Earth. Admiral Susan Wright stood calmly in the center of the command room, watching as panic spread among her staff. "How did they get so close without detection?" General Martinez demanded, his face pale. "They've been developing their own stealth technology," Admiral Wright replied. "Intelligence suggested they were close to a breakthrough, but we didn't think they had perfected it yet." That was a lie. Wright had known exactly when the Arcturians would make their move. It was why she had sent the Nighthawk away 5 years ago. It was why everything had been building to this moment. "Launch all defense fleets," she ordered, "every ship we have, and get me a direct line to the Arcturian command vessel." An officer nearby looked up in confusion. "They've never accepted communication during previous encounters, Admiral." "They will this time," Wright said. "Because this time, we're going to surrender." The room fell silent, then erupted in outrage. "Surrender?" General Martinez shouted. "Without even fighting?" Admiral Wright held up her hand. "Earth's fleet is outnumbered 3-1. Fighting now would only result in massive casualties. We need to buy time." Her real plan remained unspoken. They needed to draw the entire Arcturian fleet into position. On Mars Outpost Zeta, Jack Miller watched the emergency broadcast with growing dread. The Arcturians had finally made their move, and Earth was about to fall. His computer terminal beeped. Another message on his private channel. "Watch the skies, be ready." Jack grabbed his emergency pack, the one he had kept prepared for 5 years, and headed for the small hangar where his personal shuttle was docked. Whatever was about to happen, he wanted to be part of it. Lisa Hayes and Eric Powell stood side by side on Europa Station's observation deck, watching as Earth's defense fleet mobilized. Small dots of light representing humanity's warships moved to intercept the advancing Arcturian force. "It won't be enough," Eric said quietly. Lisa nodded grimly. "Earth has 20 ships that could be considered capital class. The Arcturians have at least 50. "Then this is it," Eric said. "The end." Lisa turned to him. "Unless your friends show up with something spectacular." Eric checked his watch. "If they're coming, it will be soon." As if on cue, his personal device buzzed. The message contained only 3 words. "Look to Saturn." Admiral Wright was in the middle of drafting surrender terms when her aide rushed in. "Admiral, you need to see this." On the main screen, mysterious energy signatures had appeared at strategic points throughout the solar system. The patterns were familiar to Wright. Quantum displacement signatures, just like the ones recorded when the Nighthawk disappeared. "Right on time," she whispered. Near the Arcturian command ship, space itself seemed to bend. A massive vessel emerged. From the distortion, the USS Nighthawk, its hull modified with new weapon systems that hadn't existed 5 years ago. But it wasn't alone. One by one, 11 more distortions appeared around the Arcturian fleet. 11 more ships emerged, identical to the Nighthawk, forming a perfect circle around the alien armada. The command room erupted in confusion and disbelief. "Is that 12 Nighthawks?" General Martinez stammered. Admiral Wright smiled. "It appears Captain Blackwood has been busy." The main communication screen activated. Captain Alan Blackwood's face appeared, older and weathered but unmistakable. For 5 years he had been branded a traitor, his name cursed by those who believed he had stolen Earth's greatest warship. "Earth Defense Command, this is Captain Blackwood of the USS Nighthawk. Sorry we're late. It took longer than expected to build the rest of them." On Europa Station, Eric Powell whooped with joy, startling everyone on the observation deck. "I knew it," he shouted, grabbing Lisa's arm. "Do you see? They didn't just hide the Nighthawk, they used it as a template." Lisa stared in awe at the 12 identical warships now visible on the station's tracking screens. How? Where did they get the resources? The manpower? Eric's eyes shone with pride. Remember those colony ships that supposedly went missing in deep space? The mining expeditions that were written off as lost? They weren't lost, they were recruited. But it would take decades to build 11 warships that size, Lisa protested. "Not if you had help," Eric replied. The Nighthawk carried experimental, fabrication technology, self-replicating construction systems. Give it enough raw materials and time. Lisa understood now. 5 years in the Kuiper Belt, mining asteroids, building in secret. "Exactly," Eric said. "And now they're back." On the Nighthawk's bridge, Captain Blackwood stood tall as he faced the bridge crew, men and women who had sacrificed everything for this moment. They had lived as ghosts for 5 years, cut off from families and friends, working tirelessly to build a fleet that could save humanity. "Open a channel to the Arcturian command vessel," he ordered. The alien that appeared on screen had the typical Arcturian features, 6 eyes arranged in a circle, grayish skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and tentacle-like appendages where a human would have arms. "This is High Commander Zexa Thrall of the Arcturian Collective," the alien said in perfect English. "Your primitive vessels do not concern us. Stand down and accept our protection or be destroyed." Blackwood smiled. "I think you misunderstand the situation, Commander. We're not here to surrender. We're here to show you exactly what happens when you back humans into a corner." He nodded to his weapons officer. Simultaneously, all 12 Nighthawk-class vessels fired their main weapons, not at the Arcturian ships, but at precise points in space around them. The energy beams intersected, creating a web of destructive force that trapped the alien fleet. "What you're seeing," Blackwood continued, "is a quantum containment field. Your ships can't jump away, can't send messages for reinforcements. You're isolated, Commander, just like we were for 5 years." The Arcturian's 6 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of distress. "This technology is beyond human capability." "Not anymore," Blackwood replied. "Now, here are our terms." Admiral Wright watched the exchange with satisfaction. Operation Shadow. Fleet had succeeded beyond her wildest hopes. The gamble she and a select few had taken, sending Earth's most valuable military asset into exile, had paid off. Her secure terminal beeped. A message from Captain Blackwood on a private channel. "Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2 when you give the word?" Wright smiled. The Arcturians thought this was the extent of humanity's secret weapons. They had no idea what else Captain Blackwood and his crew had developed during their 5 years in exile. The tide had turned. Humanity was no longer the underdog in this conflict, and soon the entire galaxy would know it. The 12 Nighthawk-class vessels moved with perfect coordination. Each ship demonstrated capabilities far beyond the original specifications that Earth's Defense Command had on record. New weapon systems fired with devastating precision. Advanced shield technology absorbed hits that would have destroyed any other human vessel. From the Nighthawk's bridge, Captain Blackwood directed the battle with calm confidence. 5 years of planning, building, and training had prepared his crews for this moment. "Nighthawk 7 and 8, target the Arcturian cruisers on the outer ring," he ordered. "Nighthawk 3, reinforce your position near Saturn's rings." His tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Gray, looked up from his console. "Captain, the Arcturians are trying to regroup their forces at the center of their formation." Blackwood nodded. Exactly as expected. They always fall back to defensive positions when surprised. He turned to his communications officer. Signal all ships. Execute pattern Delta. 8 of the Nighthawk vessels suddenly vanished from normal space, using their advanced jump capabilities to reappear seconds later inside the Arcturian formation. The alien ships scrambled to adjust, but it was too late. The human vessels were among them, firing at point-blank range. On Earth's Defense Command Center, Admiral Wright watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and relief. For 5 years, she had carried the weight of her decision, knowing that if Blackwood failed, she would be responsible for Earth's fall. General Martinez stood beside her, his earlier doubt replaced by amazement. How did they build so many ships in just 5 years? Wright allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't just the ships, General. It was what they put in them. On the main screen, one of the Nighthawk vessels took a direct hit from an Arcturian dreadnought. Instead of exploding, the ship's hull seemed to absorb the energy, then redirect it back at the attacker. My God, Martinez whispered. What are we seeing? Evolution, Wright answered simply. Forced by necessity and isolation. Lieutenant Eric Powell had been reinstated and was now serving in the Defense Command Center, coordinating communications between Earth forces and the Shadow Fleet, as people had begun calling it. Admiral, Powell called out, Captain Blackwood is requesting that our regular fleet fall back to defensive positions around Earth. He says the Arcturian commander is getting desperate. Wright nodded. Do it. Pull all our ships back. Martinez looked alarmed. Are you sure? We should be pressing the advantage. Trust me, Wright said. Blackwood knows exactly what he's doing. Aboard the Nighthawk, Blackwood watched as the Arcturian fleet began to adopt a new formation. Their ships were clustering together, energy building between them. They're preparing for a synchronized energy burst, Lieutenant Gray warned. If they all fire at once, even our new shields might not hold. Blackwood wasn't worried. They're predictable. This is their standard last resort tactic. He opened a channel to all Shadow Fleet vessels. All ships, initiate Phase 2. Across all 12 Nighthawk-class vessels, crew members activated systems that had never been tested in actual combat. The ships began to emit a strange field that distorted space itself around them. The Arcturian vessels fired their synchronized burst, a massive wave of energy that should have destroyed anything in its path. Instead, the energy wave split around, the human ships like water flowing around rocks in a stream. Phase 2 successful, Gray reported, sounding almost surprised that it had worked. Blackwood allowed himself a small smile. Of course it is. We had 5 years to perfect it. He turned to his weapons officer. Now show them Phase 3. On Europa Station, Lisa Hayes watched the battle through the station's long-range sensors. What she was seeing defied all known laws of physics. The Nighthawks are doing something to space itself, she said to the station commander. It's like they're bending reality around them. The commander, an older man who had fought in the first skirmishes with the Arcturians, shook, his head in disbelief. No human technology can do that. It's not just human technology anymore, Lisa realized. They've created something entirely new. Jack Miller's small shuttle approached Earth's defense perimeter. He had pushed the engines beyond safe limits to get here in time. This is Captain Jack Miller requesting emergency clearance, he transmitted. Authorization code Sierra Tango 957, a familiar voice responded. Jack, is that you? Jack smiled. Hello, Kate. Been a while. Chief Engineer Kate Daniels, now a senior officer in Earth's Defense Fleet, sounded shocked. Everyone thought you'd disappeared into exile. More like strategic reassignment, Jack replied. I need to speak with Admiral Wright immediately. I have information from Captain Blackwood. Kate's voice turned serious. Get to Docking Bay 4, I'll meet you there. In the heart of the battle, one of the Nighthawks, designated Nighthawk 5, took multiple direct hits from Arcturian weapons. Its captain, Maria Sanchez, assessed the damage with grim determination. Shield generators failing, her engineer reported. Hull integrity at 42% and dropping. We can't take another hit like that. Maria opened a channel to the Nighthawk. Captain Blackwood, this is Nighthawk 5. We're critically damaged but still operational. Blackwood's face appeared on her screen. Fall back to secondary position. Maria, you've done enough. Maria looked around at her crew, all volunteers who had given up their old lives to join this mission. Many had been her academy classmates, officially listed as dead or missing in various incidents over the years. Negative, Captain, she replied. We still have power to the main drive. Blackwood's expression changed as he realized what she was planning. Maria, don't. The Arctarian flagship is still operational, she cut him off. If they escape, they'll bring reinforcements. We won't get another chance like this. She took a deep breath. It's been an honor, Alan. She cut the communication and turned to her crew. All non-essential personnel to escape pods now. Her first officer stepped forward. We're staying with you, Captain. Maria nodded, touched by their loyalty. Then let's make it count. Nighthawk 5 accelerated directly toward the massive Arctarian dreadnought at the center of their formation, its damaged engines pushing beyond safety limits. Divert all power to forward shields and the main drive, Maria ordered. Arm the quantum core for direct detonation. The Arctarian vessel, realizing the danger too late, attempted to move away, but Nighthawk 5 was too fast, too determined. The impact sent a shockwave through space itself. The quantum core, the experimental heart of the Nighthawk's power system, detonated on contact, creating a miniature black hole that existed for less than a second. It was long enough to tear the Arctarian flagship apart from the inside out. When the energy dissipated, both ships were gone, leaving only scattered debris and a ripple in the fabric of space-time. On the Nighthawk's bridge, silence fell as the crew watched their sister ship sacrifice itself to destroy the Arctarian command vessel. Captain Blackwood closed his eyes briefly. Maria Sanchez had been one of his most trusted officers, a friend who had volunteered for this mission knowing she might never see Earth again. He straightened in his chair. Communications. Signal all remaining Arctarian vessels. Their command. Ship is destroyed. They have two options. Surrender or join it. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had definitively turned. Without their flagship, the Arctarian fleet was in disarray. Humanity's darkest hour had become its finest, and the sacrifice of Nighthawk 5 and its crew would not be forgotten. 2 weeks after the battle, Earth celebrated its greatest victory. The remaining Arctarian ships had surrendered or fled. For the first time in years, humanity stood tall among the stars. The 3 colony worlds, under Arctarian protection, had already declared their independence, throwing off their alien overlords as news of Earth's triumph spread. In the Grand Hall of Earth's Defense Headquarters, Admiral Susan Wright stood before the assembled government officials, military leaders, and honored guests. Behind her on the massive screen were images of the 11 remaining Nighthawk-class vessels in formation around Earth, sentinels of a new era. Today, we honor not just victory, but vision, Wright began. 5 years ago, we faced an impossible choice. Our intelligence discovered the Arctarians' long-term invasion plans. We knew they were developing technology that would eventually allow them to bypass all of Earth's defenses. She paused, looking around the room. We could have tried to match them ship for ship, weapon for weapon, a race we were certain to lose. Or we could do something unprecedented. The doors at the back of the hall opened. Captain Alan Blackwood walked in, followed by his senior officers. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Men and women who had been branded traitors for 5 years were now being welcomed as heroes. Operation Shadow Fleet was the most closely guarded secret in human history. Wright continued once the applause died down. Captain Blackwood and a skeleton crew took the original Nighthawk to a hidden base in the Kuiper Belt. Their mission: use its technology as a template to build a fleet that could save humanity when the time came. Blackwood took his place beside Wright at the podium. His face showed the weight of the past 5 years. The isolation, the pressure, the constant work. The full story deserves to be told, he said. Over 300 personnel, all officially listed as deceased or missing, in various incidents, volunteered for this mission. They knew they would be cut off from families and friends with no guarantee of return. He gestured to his officers. These men and women gave up everything to ensure humanity's survival. They lived as ghosts, working tirelessly in the darkness, beyond Pluto. In the audience, Lisa Hayes sat next to Eric Powell. After years of chasing the truth, they were finally hearing it firsthand. "How did they build so many ships so quickly?" Lisa whispered. Eric smiled. "Just wait. The best part is coming." As if on cue, Blackwood continued. "During the Nighthawk's initial test runs, we discovered something unexpected. A vulnerability in space-time that would have allowed the Arcturians to bypass all of Earth's defenses. But instead of revealing this knowledge, Earth's leadership made a bold decision. We would exploit it ourselves." On the screen behind him, technical diagrams appeared, designs for engines and weapons unlike anything seen before. In the isolated reaches of the Kuiper Belt, we were free to push boundaries to experiment with physics in ways that would have been too dangerous near populated areas. Blackwood's voice filled with pride. "We didn't just build ships. We evolved technology itself." The screen changed to show the interior of a massive asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a shipyard. Automated construction systems built sections of the Nighthawk vessels with inhuman speed and precision. "Self-replicating fabrication systems," Blackwood explained. "Give them enough raw materials and time, and they can build almost anything. We mined asteroids, comets, and dwarf planets, resources untouched by humanity until now." After the ceremony, Jack Miller found himself on the observation deck where everything had started 5 years ago. The view was different now. Instead of an empty dock where the Nighthawk should have been, he could see one of the new vessels undergoing maintenance. "Brings back memories, doesn't it?" said a voice behind him. Jack turned to see Kate Daniels approaching. "Good ones and bad ones," he admitted. Kate joined him at the viewport. "I still can't believe you were part of it all along. When did Blackwood recruit you?" "He didn't," Jack said. "Admiral Wright did. Someone had to stay behind, to watch for signs that the Arcturians were making their move." Kate shook her head in amazement. 5 years of being treated like a pariah, all while knowing the truth. "It was worth it," Jack said simply, looking out at the Nighthawk vessel. In a quiet corner of the celebration hall, Commander Lisa Hayes found herself face to face with Captain Blackwood. "Commander," he acknowledged with a small smile. "I understand. You never gave up looking for us." Lisa met his gaze. "I knew you weren't a traitor, I just couldn't prove it." "Your persistence got their attention." Blackwood nodded toward where Admiral Wright stood conversing with government officials. "That's why they're offering you command of one of the new ships." Lisa's eyes widened. "What? I haven't heard anything about—" "You will," Blackwood assured her. "The Nighthawk-class vessels need captains who ask questions, who challenge assumptions. You've proven you're exactly that kind of officer." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Lieutenant Powell has been reassigned to your command. I think you'll find his experience valuable." Later that evening, Lisa and Eric stood on a different observation deck, watching the Shadow Fleet patrolling Earth's orbit. "So," Lisa said, "apparently I'm getting a ship, and you're my new communications officer." Eric grinned. "I may have put in a good word for you." "Why? You barely know me." Eric reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "Remember that first message I received 5 years ago? The one that just had coordinates and we had no choice?" Lisa nodded. "That wasn't all it contained," Eric admitted. "When properly decrypted, it contained the plans for what would become the Shadow Fleet, and a list of people who could be trusted when the time came. Your name was on it." He handed her the chip. "Captain Blackwood said to give you this. It contains everything. The full story of the past 5 years, the technology they developed, and their plans for the future." Lisa took the chip carefully. "Plans for the future? I thought the mission was just to defeat the Arcturians." Eric looked up at the stars visible beyond Earth's atmosphere. "That was just the beginning. The things they discovered out there, the technology they developed. It changes everything, Lisa." He turned to face her. "The Arcturians were just one species in a very large galaxy. There are others out there, some far more advanced and far less friendly. Humanity needs to be ready. Lisa studied the small chip in her hand, containing knowledge that would reshape humanity's future among the stars. "We will be," she said with quiet determination. Above them, the 12 Nighthawk-class vessels continued their silent vigil, protectors of Earth and harbingers of a new age. Humanity had proven itself a force to be reckoned with, and this was just the beginning.